The Puck Portfolio with Andy MacNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. I'm your host, Andy MacNeil, back for a special Friday edition of the show. I'm here alongside a couple of guests who I will bring in shortly to talk about the 2024 NHL Draft. Of course, we've got Macklin Celebrini expected to go to the San Jose Sharks, who have the number 1 overall pick. Not a lot to talk about there. It's probably the most, the least interesting part of this draft class. But after that, there's a whole lot of uncertainty, and that could lead to some interesting betting angles heading into this year's draft. So, without further ado, let's bring in our guests for today. We've got Nick Martin from the Action Network's Line Change podcast and Jeff Veillette from our very own website, CanadaSportsBetting.ca. How you doing, fellas?
Yeah, doing great, Andy. I'm pumped to be here, and hopefully we can give out some good stuff. Our line change one, I think we did a couple days too early because I feel like there's been a lot of good info leaked since then. So, hopefully,
we're glad to have you here then to clean some of that up. The Action Network mess up here over at Canada Sports Betting. No, I'm just joking. Jeff, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. This is some of the most fun times of the year. It's great that we got about 4 seconds between the Stanley Cup being awarded and the off season, but hey, that means hockey never sleeps. So it's going to be a fun weekend. We go straight into free agency after that. Hard to complain unless you're any of the teams that have to work on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder there whether you said it that the NHL isn't really taking a break here, and I wonder if that wasn't a strategic move on their part to just have this thing roll in to right into the draft, right into free agency, and kind of stay in the news cycle as long as they can throughout the summer here. Because before you know it, we're going to be talking about the 2024-25 season probably in a few weeks here. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Gives us something to talk about, but at the same time, it is a little bit tough to get used to. That's for sure. So, like I said, Macklin Celebrini expected to be the surefire number 1 overall pick. Has drawn comparisons to Sidney Crosby, so I guess that kind of says it all right there. But the Sharks have that pick, and Celebrini, they are Bet365, for example, is offering odds on the number 1 overall pick, but it is a virtual lock that Celebrini will be that for the San Jose Sharks. Do you think there is any chance that they go off the board here, like the Canadians did a few years ago with Shane Wright, or is Celebrini, he's just on a different level as far as being a can't miss prospect, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, he's a lock. I don't think there's any contention on the first overall pick.
Yeah, that's those are my thoughts exactly. So let's turn our attention to the number 2 overall pick, and I think we should preface what we're going to talk about here by saying that draft rankings, which you see a lot of, are very much different than mock drafts or anything like that. So while a player might be ranked among the top 3 picks or the top 3 players, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a top 3 or a top 5 pick, etc. So outside of Celebrini, the player that has all the buzz heading into this one, as far as the forwards go, is Ivan Demidov out of Russia. He is currently priced at plus 250 to be the number 2 overall pick. Of course, the Chicago Blackhawks are in that slot. He is down at plus 450 to become the 3rd overall pick. The Anaheim Ducks own that spot. And then number 4 goes to Columbus, and he's plus 350 to go in the number 4 spot to the Columbus Blue Jackets. So there is the Russian factor, though, and I think that is going to be talked about a lot leading up to the draft this evening. Demidov, another player, Anton. I'm gonna forgive me for these names. Silayev, I guess. Did I do that all right? Anton Silayev. He is the favorite to go number 3. He's a big 6'7" defenseman. The thing here, though, the concern that a lot of scouts, a lot of teams will have is that they have not been able to watch these players play live. And I think with Demidov specifically, none of the NHL scouts have seen him since the Hlinka Gretzky Cup back in, I think, 21-22. So it's been a while since they've had a chance to view him live. But we saw this unfold with Matvei Michkov and the Philadelphia Flyers last year. He fell to number 7 despite being thought of as arguably the most skilled player after Connor Bedard in that draft. And now it looks like we could see something like that happen again here, based on what we're seeing with the odds, as far as the number 2 and number 3 and really number 4 overall pick go in this year's draft. So I guess, Nick, we'll start with you. I know you had a bit of a strong opinion on Demidov possibly going 2nd or 3rd. Have you changed your stance on that at all with what we're seeing here in the betting market right now?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the word is Chicago is taking Levchinov, and you have to consider, like, what is Chicago's motive to head fake anybody here? They're picking 2nd. There's if word is coming out that that's what they're doing, it feels reasonable to trust it. This market's moved a lot, and like you said, when you're talking mock and rankings being different, this is a good example. And I was reading into, so supposedly Scott Powers reported that Chicago was between the two and having a tough time with the decision. Everything that came out about Demidov out of the prospect showcase was really positive. Supposedly his attitude was great. He was bigger than a lot of teams thought. So everything is kind of trending in the right direction. Dan Milstein has a proven history of getting his guys to come over, which I think is relevant here. So all of that probably doesn't mean that much in the handicapping market. Right now, I think most likely he's dropping to Montreal, it sounds like, and it's going to be Montreal's choice. I think the one thing that could throw a wrinkle in that is maybe that some of these teams that are trying to trade into 4, that might be who they have their eye on. So I think the first ones that I'd kind of want to give out, Jeff Merrick gave out Boehm to go 3rd. I think that one's believable. It's come down all day. I think there's still plus 500s out there, but I've been trying to keep all the tabs out there as I do this.
3-1 on Boehm at Bet365 currently.
Yeah, so that's dropped a ton. And I mean, I think the logic's there. I was really surprised that we saw any D-men so favored to go in these spots, because it feels like I really like Boehm. I think that there's a pretty big case to be made for him being the best defender in the draft. I think his game can really apply to the NHL, especially the way things are trending right now. And the other one that I think is still interesting, FanDuel has Levchinov, Boehm, Caden Lindstrom 4th, exact order at plus 500 still. That could be a reasonable route. You might kind of get backdoored if one of these teams happen to trade up and then decide to take Demidov, which you can also bet at 33-1. So those are kind of the ones I'm eyeing at the top of the board right now. I feel like it seems pretty comfortable to probably try to start your handicapping with the idea that Levchinov goes 2, because it would feel like a weird move for Chicago to just do anything here to try to, like, I don't really get what the motivation would be. I could see the motivation if you're in 4 and you're trying to, trade the pick or whatever to try to kind of hide your hand and do that. But feels like Chicago's pretty locked into Levchinov here.
Yeah, Jeff, do you have any thoughts on Demidov and what you see the Blackhawks doing?
I think that's all pretty reasonable. I go from the same boat that it looks like Levchinov's the direction they're going to go. Whether or not that's the best decision from a getting the best player available standpoint is definitely up for debate. Like, the skill that Demidov has is incredible. But that seems to be the direction they go. I wonder how far this ends up going with Demidov, though. I don't think it'll be quite as extreme as what we saw with Matvei Michkov last year, where he very, like, by skill should have easily gone 2nd. There were arguments a year or 2 ago that he was right up there with Bedard, and he slipped due to concerns about how quickly he'd come over. What we've seen more and more of is that the Russian program at the top level understands that there's a value of these superstar level talents coming over to North America. It's good for their game too. They like showing that they have the control to an extent, and that's why we saw Michkov play that extra year out. You're going to inevitably see the player come to, and as Nick said, he's a Milstein client. Milstein's very good at getting his guys over here. So if I'm a team looking at him, I'm thinking there's a very, very good chance I'll have him here, if not immediately, within about a year. And I can't see him slipping all the way down like like we saw last season. I think no later than 5 is probably the right call there, though. We'll see. A lot can change on draft day.
Absolutely. I want to know why there's so much talk about the Russian factor when, lately we've been seeing a lot more Americans
NCAA, yeah.
do strange things after being drafted. We see the Cutter Gauthier situation in Philadelphia with him being traded to Anaheim, and now the rumors regarding Rutger McGordy. Sorry, I don't even know how to say his name, McGordy, and he, that's going to be an interesting story heading into the summer here too. So you don't hear much about that. You don't hear teams and the media talking about, well, if we draft this guy, is he gonna come here? They've been holding out a lot longer too. So I wouldn't suspect that teams have as many concerns as maybe the media would lead you to believe. But right now, it does look like the Chicago Blackhawks, according to the betting market, will take a defenseman with Lev Shinov at minus 450. The same goes, not as much big of a favorite, but the same goes for the Anaheim Ducks with Anton Siliev at plus 160. And then things get kind of interesting, I think, in the number 4 slot, because the Columbus Blue Jackets, they need depth at all positions. But they specifically need, a high-end center to they've got a few, but they could really use somebody behind Adam Fantilli and Caden Lindstrom. Injury shortened season, 27 goals in 32 games. Has that kind of prototypical power forward look. I think it's going to be pretty hard to pass him up. But then if they do, because they could really use a defenseman as well, and maybe Ivan Demidov is there also, despite the fact that he's not a centerman. But if they do end up shaking things up, I mean, Montreal could be be in the most interesting situation here in the draft. You could have Demidov, you could have Lidstrom available. A lot of these players that we've talked about could be available, because I don't think there is any kind of certainty as to the order of which these players will be picked this year. So, I look at Demidov at plus 155, Caden Lindstrom at plus 230. This is to go number 5 overall. I don't see a lot of value in either of those, but I think if I was to do something here, I'd probably want to look at a guy like Lidstrom, maybe to go higher. But that's kind of past the point now. I think he was 25-1 to go number 3, and now he's down to 14-1. So I'm kind of out on that one, but yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty tough here, guys. I don't know where the value picks are at in this. But I think it's definitely a guessing game more than anything else. I don't think there's a lot of intel to go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just got to keep your ear to the ground. I think the William thing's still not bad if you want to tap into like Jeff Merrick being reliable. I think you're getting an okay price, and I think that exact order. And yeah, to comment, I think the Habs, I don't hate there's plus 165 out there for them to get Demidov. I think that's a slightly more reasonable sequence of events than that number 2. I don't know if I can see them passing again. I know there's a little the idea that they might take Seneke is kind of picking up some steam. So who knows about that? But I feel like this is their chance. They passed on Michkov. He already clearly looks like the second best player from that draft. I know he hasn't played in the NHL yet, but it's pretty clear that I think if you listen to any reliable ranking right now, he's ranked as the second prospect. So
yeah.
And the other thing with the Demidov is people don't know how to handicap how soft the MHL is, but I think when you look at what he did, it's pretty absurd. So,
oh yeah,
for me, I think you just pull the trigger. I don't know if the Habs will pass, and I feel like they're one of the teams. Some of these teams, like I was saying to you guys, I think it's a little surprising the Ducks are so locked into a D-man when you can say that Zellweger and Mintnikov are both arguably as likely to be high quality NHLers than Gauthier and Carlson are, and McTavish, if you want to put him in there too. So I don't know. I think the logic is there. I think it's still a pretty good number.
I think people, like I said, through the Anton Silyev has been described as like a bit of a unicorn, right? So I think people have really locked themselves into the Ducks drafting him if he's still available. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough choice here. Um, as far as the Montreal Canadiens go, Jake, gonna bring you in for a sec here. Have to get your thoughts as our resident Habs fan. What do the Canadians need? What is their biggest need to fill in this draft? Is it best player available, or is there a specific need that they should be looking to fill?
I mean, all the messaging I get from the team is if the best player available is Demidov there at 5, that's what they're going to do. They need to take a big swing on forward. But to touch upon what Nick was saying, I think Boyum is an interesting pick. Should Demidov and Lindstrom be gone for the Habs, I think Boyum is someone who's made a huge impression on them recently. So if you're live betting the draft and you see those guys go, I think Boyum is someone to jump in on for the Habs. But in terms of what they need a home run hit on forward. They need another game breaker, certainly for their second line. Whether that be Demidov or Lindstrom, I think if either one of those or both of those guys are available, it's going to be one of them for sure for the Habs.
Yeah, Lidstrom was the favorite actually. No, never mind. Sorry, that was my mistake. He's the favorite to go number 4 overall, which makes a lot of sense for me with Columbus needing to fill out that center position, and a player like him could maybe be the perfect guy to play with a guy like Johnny Gaudreau in the future. But the fact is that none of these teams that we're talking about right now are going to be in playoff contention anytime soon. So none of these players are going to be asked to make an immediate impact. If Montreal, I guess it feels a little bit more unlikely after them taking such a big swing on Slafkovsky with the number 1 overall pick the last time out. I think it's more predictable that they'll do something like take Demidov if he is available at the number 5 overall pick. But I do want to talk about one other Canadian team that's got a pretty good spot in the draft, picking at number 9, the Calgary Flames. Nick, I got to start with you, man, since you're in Calgary. If Iginla Jr. is available at the number 9 spot, do you think it's a foregone conclusion that the Flames take him, or do you think there's more questions to be asked here?
I do think if he's there, he's probably coming off the board, because it sounds almost more so like he might not even be there. And from a handicapping perspective, it's really interesting. I haven't seen Iginla stuff anywhere, and he's some people have been talking about him potentially going a lot higher. So I would have at least liked to have seen those odds, and I've found it quite interesting that he's just not been listed on anything from the best of my knowledge. Even just an over/under total, I would have liked to have seen what it would have been.
Yeah. Even just a yes, no, will he be drafted by the Flames or not? Right? Like,
I'm surprised that hasn't existed. Yeah. So, I mean, I think they would. I think there's a lot of guys to like there. I think Yakimchuk, they'd probably be pretty happy with, or even Berkeley Catton, I think is interesting. I was kind of eyeing, I think his under 11.5 it looks pretty good to me. I feel like the Devils could afford to swing on that with the way they're set up. But maybe it's one of those things where you're handicapping what you think should happen versus what teams are actually going to do. I think he's also a guy that maybe if you're San Jose and you made that trade, he might be the type of guy you're eyeing. To me, I feel like you're not making that trade to grab kind of a depth defenseman that you think might be, maybe gets to the top pair. I think Catton's the kind of guy that if he hits in the NHL, he could really boom. If his offensive upside kind of translates how some people think it might. So I don't know. I could definitely see the Flames going with him if Iginla's gone, but I don't know. He's definitely gonna be one to watch. And I feel like even for some of the bets that I do have down, not exactly pumped at all to hear that he's could get kind of floated in that 5, 6, 7 range. We'll see. Hopefully that doesn't come to fruition, but it's definitely been interesting to see that he's never been listed anywhere.
Jeff, you've been kind of following the Canadian teams heading into the first round here. 6 out of the 7 teams have a pick in the first. Actually, sorry, 5 out of the 7 teams. I realized that Montreal is listed twice there now. Actually, no,
Calgary twice, so 14.
Calgary twice
Yeah,
and Montreal twice. So I'm
yeah,
4 out of the 7 teams.
yeah. No Edmonton, no Winnipeg, no Vancouver.
That's right. That's right. So at number 5, the kind of consensus pick seems to be Caden Lindstrom. That was a couple of days ago, but now that's seemingly changed here with this development. Cole Badoon is a player that has been linked to as a potential draft pick for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who is your guy that you're looking for Toronto to take here?
Do you want my real answer?
Your real answer, yeah.
My real answer is trade the pick.
Trade the pick, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Toronto could use some extra young talent. There's no question about that. 23 is kind of a hard spot to find a bona fide high-end player. I mean, if somebody starts to really fall, then maybe you do something there. But at the same time, they could use some immediate help if they can find a market on like a second line center kind of thing. I would definitely be looking in that direction, or if a young player with value comes up. Beyond that, like you said, Badoon, or I won't lie, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Is a
Yeah,
solid
no,
option, so like strong two-way forward. The McKenzie has him in that spot, and Bob's usually really good for telling you where the tea leaves are on players. He
yeah.
kind of fits that mold, similar to what they got in Easton Cowan last year, where he's just very cerebral, hardworking player. There's a couple of other directions you can go. I think elite prospects who tends to go more on skill. I think they went with Teddy Stiga, who could go a lot of different directions in this draft. I know a lot of like the props on how many American players get picked will rely heavily on where he ends up lining up. But yeah, if I'm Toronto, I'm looking at that thing as an asset today. It's tough to say for a team that's moved a lot for pieces in the last couple of years, particularly on Reynolds. But if you can get something that helps you medium term, I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting in hindsight because there is so much uncertainty in this draft. I think this could be a class that we look back at in a few years and absolutely see some diamonds in the rough in the bottom 10 of the first round, in that uh, those last 10 picks, etc. So while I do get it that historically the 23rd overall pick hasn't yielded great returns, I think there's going to be some very good players that are going to get pushed down in this draft because for one reason or another, because there does seem to be so much uncertainty. But yeah, I mean, for me, from a betting perspective, at this point, I don't see anything that I really am enticed to lock in on the day of the draft. But yeah, I mean, there has been just in the morning since trying to set this show up, there has been quite a bit of movement here. I mean, Demidov was plus 450 earlier to go to Montreal at number 5. And now he's plus 450 to go to Columbus at number 4 earlier. And he was around the 2-1 range, I think, to go to Montreal at number 5. That has shifted plus 155. Nick, you still like that though, eh? Plus 165, you said. Where's that available at?
Yeah, in the time we've recorded, it's gone to plus 140 on both. Yeah, so I would tentatively say play that. Oh, there's still plus 150 on Sports Interaction.
Yeah, that 365 has plus 155 here.
Yeah, so I wouldn't hate that. I like Buim third a little more, but that's
that's kind of your lock, not your lock, your look for today.
Yeah, and like I say, just keep trying to listen. Like you'll get pretty reliable word. Last year, Scott Wheeler pretty much said, and I'm not saying go crazy, and not that you can really bet a lot on these anyways, but
yeah,
he basically said as a rule the Ducks were taking Carlson. Like he pretty much broke it, and it was still plus 300. So if you can find something like that from someone reliable, and especially when you're talking about a longer number where it's like, okay, maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong, but I'm taking, whatever I'm getting, they're saying there's a 20% chance he's right. And then, so I think you kind of roll with that. But yeah, other than that, it's obviously tough. It's not quite what it is in the NFL, but it's I feel like it's getting to a point where it's pretty fun.
So that is Zeev Weem at 3-1 to go in the number 3 position, correct?
Yes, and there's still why did I close this? Because now I'm gonna have to find it again. But there was an exacta. It was plus 10, or it was 10-1 at the start of the day, 234 exacta, and it was still plus 550 when we started recording that it would be Levchinov, Weem, Caden Lindstrom. So I think that's not bad. And then you could also play it with Levchinov, Weem, Demidov, 36-1. So if you wanted to try to, because I think Columbus is pretty, it sounds like they're pretty high on Lindstrom. Really not. I don't know if they'll make the pick and ever pass on him. But who's to say? Right now, it's probably a little.
Who
hard.
did you have in the number 3 slot in the exacta? Sorry,
Weem. So I would still see that as like a
Anton Levashov, and then Weem, and who was in the number 2 slot?
Lindstrom was no. So second was Levchinov, third was Weem, 4 was Lindstrom.
Gotcha.
Right? Did I just say that right? Yeah. So that's come down significantly today, but it feels like a reasonable way to try to get at that Ducks pick as well, especially if you wanted to play the Demidov 4 route too. But I don't.
Is that FanDuel, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a good list here of for the exacta here for the 2, 3, 4 spot. Some realistic combinations, I guess. So something to consider. Jeff, did you find anything that you liked when you were doing your draft research? I know you had one pick. I know you had one pick that was kind of interesting. Was it the defenseman drafted in the first round, something like that?
I think of like the props because I looked at all of Betways. They had like 10 of them. The most interesting one would probably be the 5 Americans. And then Bet99 had one that was defenseman draft in the first round, correct? So that was I think minus 175 over and plus 140 under. At that point, I would probably still lean the under. There's a lot of guys within the top 40, but I think I'm using like Mackenzie's as like the strongest proxy for tea leaves, and he had 10 guys in the first round. So for there to be an extra 2 in that handful of picks feels a little bit unlikely to me. So 140 seems like it's good value. I'm not sure if that's changed since yesterday, but at time of publish, I thought the under there was pretty shrewd.
Nice,
Jeff,
nice.
I was gonna say, Jeff, I'll put you on the spot. Where do you? I haven't seen Yzerman odds anywhere. Where do you think Yzerman goes? Do you think he's gonna? Have you heard anything on that?
No.
Because I feel like that one is another one that could go a lot of ways and swing some of these bets. But
I was really surprised not to see him listed. Because like he's one of the players that people consider has star power. Like if to really be a superstar in the NHL someday, right? Like so, I'm surprised that we haven't seen anything with him listed in there. So
I wouldn't be too surprised if San Jose getting the 11th has something to do with Yzerman.
that is the other thought I had.
Yeah.
I was thinking he'd be, because it just doesn't seem like a move you're making unless you have someone like that where you're like, hey, this guy is really high upside. We're going to pull the trigger on this. Whereas, I mean, who knows who they look at like that.
like where's he currently ranked at by Mackenzie right now?
He ranks him 14th. I know Elite Prospects has him 13th. I think most people have him in like the high teens.
Yeah, it's wild that like guys like Adam Klebler and Andrew Basha and like I mean there's plenty of other guys here too that are in the teens and the 20s and the 30s and even the 40s.
There's two guys on Bet365's over unders that are in the 50s for their line, and you don't have the guy in the early teens. It doesn't make it.
Why? Who's putting that guy up? Like who's making the decision to put that guy up? But
John Mustard's one of them. Hey, because I actually think it's another one of those ones where, like, my opinion, I think he should be gone by 52, but who knows? He's the exact type of player that could plummet and nobody wants to take a shot.
I had him highlighted in our article. We wrote an article yesterday previewing the draft, and one of the things I looked at were all of those lines and where they line up with the McKenzie ranking, and for the guys who are outside of the first round, the consensus rankings. And we highlighted a bunch that there's a difference of like 3 to 5 picks, and he's one of those where his consensus I think is like 6 spots higher than what his line is.
Yeah, Yzerman kind of has a DeBrincat vibe to me. Like I think if he dropped like that, wouldn't be shocking, but whoever like ends the slide is probably making a smart risk, I'd say.
That's a case where I would be okay if the Leafs not trading their pick. Going back to the previous point, I would make that pick if available.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think the how what the Blackhawks, Ducks, and the Blue Jackets choose to prioritize could really shake things up one way or the other. And then even coming out of the top 10, I think it's going to be a really interesting first round. I'm sure there's going to be a player or two that fall a lot further than where anybody expected them to fall. So yeah, that'll make for some good TV tonight. And I really appreciate you guys jumping on to break it all down for me.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
For
same
sure.
here. But good stuff.
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
No. Thanks for having us. It's going to be an exciting couple days.
Yeah, I mean nobody's gonna watch. We're not paying attention to the second round. What are you talking about? It's one day. Nobody's gonna pay attention to the second round. No, but
I want to see
yeah,
who trades 2/4 for 3/6. I don't know.
Free agency on Monday, Canada Day should be interesting. Should be some trades this weekend in the NHL, and that'll give us something to look forward to. But yeah, free agency frenzy coming up here on Monday. We'll have plenty of content over at CanadaSportsBetting.ca. Nick, do you guys got anything planned for the Action Network, or are you guys wrapping it up for the remainder of the season?
It's pretty wrapped. We did a Stanley Cup outright, super preview, and then I'm gonna do my own one probably, or super early preview. I don't even know what I'm saying. I've had a big week. I was in Montana for a bachelor's party on the weekend, and then trying to get everything back together here. But
Nice.
I am gonna do my own futures piece probably right around mid-July. So
right on.
Coming up.
All right. Well, talk to you guys over the summer. Enjoy your summer. Enjoy your time off. And I will talk to you later. Thanks for joining, everybody.